All right, next up, Jeremy Hoffman has joined us because we are going to talk a little bit about the return of the Dark Knight this holiday season. It's Batman Arkham Origins, which is a prequel to Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. And it's also not being done by Rocksteady. It's being done by Warner Brothers Montreal. And obviously, when we first heard that this game was coming, there were rumors about a couple of other companies working on it. We got a little bit concerned. But I will share something with you. Reed Schneider, who's up at Warner Brothers Montreal, I actually worked with him when I was at Ubisoft because he was on Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed. Sorry, not Assassin's Creed. Splinter Cell, the first Splinter Cell that came out. So I like Reed. He's a good lad, and I've got faith in him. But I mean, this is a bit of a departure. It's a prequel, and it's not Rocksteady. How do you feel, Jeremy? How do you feel?
How do I feel?
Tell me.
I'm still excited. I love the Batman games. I think they're probably my favorite games this generation. As a lifelong Batman fan. The other thing with the new studio taking over is Eric Holmes is the creative director. We talked about this a little bit earlier this week, but Eric Holmes came from Hulk Ultimate Destruction, did Prototype. He's written comic books on the side. Like, if anyone's going to take over that game that loves and lives and breathes comics, Eric's great. So that to me is a huge kind of sigh of relief.
And if you want an example of how a superhero game, can take can take the core aspect of any character's, soul, if you will, it's Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Yeah. And that was just such a great Xbox game that woefully just got, it just didn't get the love it deserved, in my opinion. Yeah, I adored that game. Yeah. That was launched while I was at Vivendi, and we would just go in the games room and batter the shit out of those buildings. But that was the old Radical team.
Well, we have like Prototype now, the concept you can like pick something up, target an object, and throw it at it, and I think that game originated that. Like,
the Prototype engine was the basis for Hulk.
It worked.
But so I mean that to me is a huge sigh of relief. And then if you read the article, we should say that the information came out in Game Informer earlier this week, and if you want all that info, check them out.
Yes, and if we are showing any screenshots, we promise not to blur them out. Unlike other publications this
Don't
week.
get mad at me, Andy.
Yeah.
But the game, they've said they don't want to change the combat. They're just because it works. So they're adding new things. They're adding new features. It sounds like we're going to see. There were some really cool screens of like a younger Penguin where he doesn't have the bottle in his eye, and it's like I like that we're going to see those origins. At that point, Commissioner Gordon is Captain Gordon. We're going to have that interplay with the cops, the criminals, and Batman. Are we going to see Robin? Are we going to see, we've talked about this. It's, for the last 4 days, it's just...
Are we going to see Henry Ducard? I mean, are we going to see any of Batman's training from when he becomes Bruce Wayne? And, I think I'm a bigger Bat fan as you, and, you've got Henry Ducard, who's alias of Ra's al Ghul, right. And how does that fit in? Does it fit in, tie in more to comics than perhaps the reboot of the movies? But
oh yeah, I think that the movies are their own thing. I think the comics, they've been able to pull from just about everything in this universe, and it's its own universe. I like that they're playing within one universe. We're gonna see, and going this far back obviously gives them the opportunity to do Origins 2. Origins 3, right? Like, so Rocksteady handles the current timeline, and these guys handle earlier games, which is awesome.
This is the big question. This is what I tweeted out this week. I mean, what is Rocksteady doing right now? And before I was reminded that they're working on a Silver Age Batman, I actually was hoping that we'd get a Justice League game within that engine, because that's something that I've wanted to see for such a long time. I mean, no disrespect to Injustice, which I'm sure is going to be brilliant, but I think I don't want this to turn into a yearly franchise. I mean, I want to build up the anticipation. Every 2 years, maybe a new Batman game jumping forward, and I'm hoping it's not going to be a case of Origins 1 year, Arkham County the next year, Origins 2, Arkham State.
I mean, you compare.
I hope it is that way.
That sounds fantastic. You compare that to where we were, 10 years ago with Batman. I mean, just where we were pretty much every other year, other than the years we've had since Arkham Asylum came out.
There were mediocre Batman games coming out every year. I'd take a good one.
I'd much rather have that than nothing.
But honestly, I'd like that 2 year gap because I think, because I love the Batman series so much, and I don't want to see that series hit with the same franchise exhaustion that we're seeing with Call of Duty, we're seeing with Medal of Honor, we're seeing with Assassin's Creed. Right. I mean, I'm highly questioning Black Flag being Assassin's Creed 4. It doesn't feel like AC4. It doesn't feel like it's what it should be. And it's getting, it's getting messy. And yes, you need a hit every year, or 2 or 3 hits a year. So why not, when you've got a universe as big as DC's, why isn't there, all right, a Batman game, then a Justice League game, then a Superman game, then a Wonder Woman? And bounce them up a little bit, change them up, and give us access to these other characters, and use Batman to introduce these characters before they go off on their own. I mean, let's face it, the only other DC games that have been out were Green Lantern, which was absolutely horrid. But that character has a lot of legs in him. We could see different Green Lantern games. I mean, I would love to see that stuff come out. I just don't want to have them exhaust Batman year after year, and then, next generation after this one, well, we're going to reboot everything from the beginning. So it's Batman Origins, the precursor, the prequel to the original Revengeance setting starting up.
Well, I think you could do it different ways, right? So Batman, we've talked, I'd love to see a Batman Beyond universe. So it's you could still do a Batman game, put it in a different Batman universe. I just think some of those characters are difficult to make games for. I'd love to see a great Superman game. No one's been able to do it. Green Lantern's kind of an interesting character. I think Ryan Stevens and I sat down 3 years ago and plotted out a Green Lantern game where, because Warner Brothers owns the franchise and they own Scribblenauts, it was a Scribblenaut style Green Lantern game where you get through by drawing in words and calling it power. And I'm that's the Green Lantern game I want. I don't need a Arkham City style Green Lantern game. That has no interest to me.
Doesn't the Scribblenauts guy even have little goggles?
Yes, it's so close. Just to make them all green and let me do that. That's where I want to get to.
Let's have the discussion that I raised last week. Infinite Crisis is a MOBA game.
But I think that was the MOBA game first, and then I don't think they sat in a room and thought, okay, Infinite Crisis, what can we do?
I think they basically thought,
we have
another MOBA game, we want to make MOBA money because everybody's investing in it, what can we slap on it? And didn't Guardians of Middle-earth teach anybody? I mean, I played that, and it was underwhelming. It didn't hook me into the MOBA gameplay style.
But I think what they're trying to do with that is, the rumors that we've heard, especially with, this could be totally unfounded, but what Rocksteady may be working on is some kind of tie into Justice League, because we've heard for so many years that Warner Brothers is trying to do something to combat this Avengers, bum rush that we're currently experiencing, which is awesome. But so I think, they maybe looked at the MOBA thing and thought, okay, well, we can add this, and then maybe, there's the Guardians of Middle-earth approach where you just grab every single random elf and just throw them in there and make them a character and give them a trailer, versus let's just have it be these core characters. So people who don't know, I don't know who you are out there, that don't know who Wonder Woman is, or don't know who, Flash is, or even Martian Manhunter, or some of these smart, or Green Arrow. But if you just have these 7, 8, 9 core Justice League characters and then reproduce them in all the different universes, that will hopefully familiarize people from a production standpoint, from a commercial standpoint, much more than just firing in Plastic Man and all.
But a while
Okay.
ago we heard, there was that one rumor that Rocksteady was working on some sort of Silver Age game. That was one outlet said that.
Hollywood Reporter last year.
And then no one else ever followed up on that. It never happened again. There wasn't really any. I don't know. I feel like the way that Arkham City ended, they have one more game in them within that universe. There was a lot of hanging stuff in there. So maybe they were listen, we want to finish our story. We don't really want to do this Justice League thing now. And that's where the MOBA came from, which I would be I hope that within this, business environment that Warner Brothers is looking at Rocksteady to do what they want, because they have been the ones that have made probably the best licensed game ever.
Yeah, no argument.
And we could argue. I'm sure everyone's going to argue with me. Well, we could have that conversation.
Well, certainly the best comic book games ever.
Oh yeah, but I mean, in top 5 licensed games ever, that's pretty easy to say.
That GoldenEye for me.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And how long ago is GoldenEye?
Right.
So we have to wait. It's if we're going to wait another 15 years for an awesome licensed game. No, let Rocksteady do what they want. I want them to finish. If it's Arkham World, Arkham County, Arkham State, whatever, let them finish that. If they want to do a Silver Age thing later. I just want Rocksteady to do what they want, because they've proven themselves to the fans and, more importantly, to investors, because those games have sold.
Yeah.
right? Like, let's look at it. If the games didn't do well, then Warner Brothers comes in and wants to tweak with it, you could be like, okay, well, I get why. You made money, you won awards, you made a fucking awesome game that fans like. Leave them alone, let them do their thing. And so maybe that's why they're trying to do the yearly thing or bi-yearly thing where they're not stressing those guys out and making them do a new game every 18 months. Maybe they're being smart about it, and that's what I'm hoping for.
I think surprise really is the name of the game with this franchise at this point, and I think that's what's so refreshing about the experiences, you know, not only what they did in the story, but just discovering these things, having villains actually hunt you down in Arkham City. And from a fanboy perspective, we've had so many different iterations of Batman. I think there's like Beware the Batman's coming, like Adam West is getting his own animated series. There's like Young Justice, like there's so many different people writing different, I mean, he's got 6 different rebooted comics, like
he was dead.
read,
you know, Bruce Wayne was dead, and then he came back he was chased through time by Wonder Woman and Superman who tried to rescue him.
Inc. and all this stuff. And so with the Arkham games, like I don't really have any expectations for the story. I would much rather them do something like they did with Scarecrow. I think it was one of my favorite reimaginings. I didn't like it right off the bat because I'm like, that's not the Scarecrow I know, but I was really surprised with what they did with it. So like, I want them to do wacky things with the origin. I want them to kill off characters that weren't dead. You know, I want to be surprised. So I'm looking forward to both of the origins, and hopefully if we get the sequel to Arkham City.
Yeah, I think my main concern with them, you know, perhaps, you know, chucking out more of these on a more regular basis is just the world and the city itself, and how do you continue to keep this same environment interesting, right? Because it's like at some point you've got to say like, okay, we pretty much know
I have the answer to
Arkham,
that.
we know the city, you know?
I have the answer to that. No Man's Land. Well, I mean, you know, and they kind of went that way, and because we were talking about this yesterday in another discussion, so he's like the 4th time you hear me bring this up, but it's, you know, in No Man's Land, Gotham is leveled by an earthquake, and to me, after having half of the city walled off for Arkham City, to see then all of a sudden Gotham being leveled, what's left, you know, cut off from the outside world, which obviously it was in the Dark Knight Rises, and then, you know, to have these criminals taking their own quadrants and sectors and building on what they did in Arkham City. That's how they can make it really interesting. Yes, dear.
Then you have to have multiple characters. If you're going to do that story, and they're already kind of headed in this direction, and I don't know, I could see the Origins series not really messing with that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you just played as Batman, because it's their game. They're, you know, that might fit into what they want to do with the story.
I'm actually thinking about the Rocksteady.
But if Rocksteady's doing something, and they already started to introduce, you know, you could play as Robin, you could play as Nightwing. They have the whole Catwoman campaign.
You've got Batgirl, you've got
and then the No Man's Land, you know, lends itself perfectly to, you know, what's so interesting is not only, you know, them surviving, but the fact that they're physically trapped. I mean, even like the Catwoman storyline in No Man's Land was amazing because they were all put in just, you know, between a rock and a hard place. So it'd be really interesting if part of that game, like you were saying, I could go on like this for hours, but is all of these characters, you know, finding a meeting point, you know, like trying to get through parts of the city and get, you know, to one point. So maybe you can choose, okay, I want to switch over to this character.
Or we leave Gotham. I mean, that's like some of the fun Batman adventures is when he's having to track down, you know, Ra's al Ghul. He's in Japan and he's here and he's there.
The one in Japan where he's got the super fan and you see the clones and stuff. That was actually
I mean, I think that it's Batman. They've been able to keep him fresh for 90 years. I don't think you know, 4 games in, we're like, oh God, they don't have enough to do.
Well, no, I think they have a lot. I'm just, you know, I'm kind of, I don't want them get into the retread mode. I want them to keep that level of excellence.
Well, that's all comes down to story, though, right? Like the stories have been good, so you can keep putting it in Gotham as long as the stories are good and they're true to their characters.
Do you think they'll try to tackle the challenge of vehicles? That's been a tough thing. We haven't seen. Have we had a good vehicle in a Batman game since Batman Returns?
Lego Batman. Lego Batman had the best vehicles. They handled vehicles very, very well. And I do love the fact that, you know, there's not a huge amount of gadgets in it. You have some gadgets in the Batarangs. You can upgrade them. But yeah, I don't like putting driving sequences in. I like having Batty Boy just swing around. And I know what Batty Boy also means, so I want to throw that out there. But anyway, all right. So I think we're all excited. I'm just worried for the future, but I'm still going to be there day one pre-ordering my collector's edition to go next to the Arkham City one. So, yes.
And really quickly, Blackgate, the handheld game, which sounds awesome. It's done by, and this has got to be where you have to get excited. It's like all the old retro guys are now making a goddamn Metroid game with Batman in
Batman.
in the style of Shadow Complex, which is a game I've been begging for a sequel for years. Sounds amazing.
And Arkham's really fun with the hacking and tools and stuff like that. So I can imagine there's all sorts of fun little mini games you can play with hacking stuff and sending messages to people and scrubbing waveforms, whatever.
I just hope the PC version is compatible with Oculus Rift.
Not in third person.
All right. Now it's grab bag time. We did go a little over on the Batman discussion, so we're going to, instead of the normal length of the grab bag, Blood, you have something that you wanted to talk about in grab bag, so slap it out there.
Yeah, I am getting more and more sick of loot. Looting containers. BioShock Infinite is one example, but I've got a ton of others like Borderlands 2 and stuff. But you know, it's like when I'm running around like grabbing pennies and eating cigarettes. What am I doing in Infinite with the cigarettes?
Look,
it's like you grab a pack of cigarettes and you get
quickly.
They should at least show you smoking the ciggies, for God's sake. But no, apparently that's wrong. You can't show people smoking cigarettes. You can put a hook in their head and rip it out, but apart from that, you can't smoke.
But yeah, it's crazy, right?
You know what game did loot really well actually was Rage, because if you like walked into a closet and you're like, oh, okay, there's bullets over there, there's this thing, there's that thing on the table. You clicked one thing, you got it all, and you moved on. And there were no inventory restrictions. You didn't have to worry about like, oh, you know, and if you noticed the shotgun stills were still there, you're like, oh, I'm probably full on shotgun shells. Moving on.
It's funny. I was going to use Rage as an example of a game I didn't like looting in because I want. If you have no inventory, like here's the problem. If you have no inventory restrictions, if I walk in and I open a container, just give me everything.
Sure.
Like don't make me be like click open, click yes. Now if I have weight, like if there's a certain amount of weight I could carry, then let me pick what I want. But if it's like you can carry everything, then don't make me click twice.
But what's up with the arbitrary restrictions, though? I mean, for example, let's talk about BioShock Infinite, where you have, all right, you can only carry 2 weapons, and you can only have X amount of ammo for each one. Why can't I, if this is, why can't I just have unlimited ammo? Why can't I pick up every bit of ammo that I want? Why do I have to have this arbitrary restriction when I don't have real inventory management as such? And yeah, I've got my gear I can swap out, and I can carry 36 different hats and 46 pairs of pants, but I can only carry 8 RPG missiles at once.
Right.
So
Well,
you're saying you want a
Defiance.
bag of infinite holding.
Well, okay,
Going
a
back
bag
to
of
Defiance,
BioShock
though.
Infinite holding, yes, indeed.
Going back to Defiance, you know, the inventory restrictions in that are like tied to your level, so it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, I can only hold 20 guns now, and like after my ego rating goes up so much, now I can hold 28 items. You know,
I've always known Bloodworth had a really high ego rating.
It's going higher and higher by the minute.
But I think to me it's just kind of the worthlessness of a lot of this stuff. You know, it used to be like in the especially like the older Zelda games, like you got to like a chest and it was a big chest you opened and you got something really cool. Now it's like, all right, there's a new gun, it's blue. What is it good for? Oh, all my other guns are better than it anyways. So okay, do I sell this off? Do I scrap it for parts?
I mean, looting. I feel like looting is a conversation you have to have about and like with different types of games. Like MMOs, like that's a key part of that experience is looting and getting better equipment and when you're gaining levels. That makes sense. Like I can't use this gun now because I'm not the right level. I'm not this. Like that to me is I have less of an issue with. But it's games where there is no level, there is no XP, there is no, and you're like, so I can use anything at any time. Just make it more friendly.
Give us more pockets.
Or you have to eat like 10 hot dogs to fill up your health, you know, unless you find a med kit.
Right.
Well, I mean, I like the way Far Cry did it, where you could hunt stuff, skin stuff to create bigger bags, and have that stuff around. That I think they kind of nailed it to a certain degree. But yeah, if I'm walking into a firefight and I'm about to hit the arena stage where everything closes behind me, I want to be able to put some of that food in my pocket. Or in a bag and access it mid-combat, or a health pack or whatever, especially if there's nothing around in the arena. I did have a topic for grab bag, and we perhaps I can throw it out to you very quickly. Rumor is that EA are buying up LucasArts assets and old stuff. Not very happy with that myself. I mean, I'd love to see some of that LucasArts stuff come back, but I don't trust Electronic Arts to organize an orgy in a brothel right now. So, of your favorite all-time LucasArts games, what would you like to see come back, and who would you like to see handle it?
Oh, Jesus.
From a publisher perspective, it doesn't have to be a specific dev team. But anybody. And Brandon, you're bouncing up and down like a puppy who hasn't had his balls cut off. Off you go.
Telltale, Indiana Jones, done. Probably two of the best. I don't know if the top 10 best, but maybe the top 20 or top 30 best adventure games I've ever played. Last Crusade and the Fate of Atlantis. And just really great for their day, and obviously like outdated until Walking Dead came out, which kind of redefined everything. Until Back to the Future came out and showed how you can rebrand something, make it Back to the Future reminded you of the old films. You were nostalgic, but it was its own property at the same time. And I think every action game that we've ever played with indie has kind of failed, and so until like a Rocksteady comes along and figures out what the hell they're doing, I think that'd be really interesting. I think it's a great genre to use for adventure. We got AJ Locascio in the office. He can jump in and do Harrison Ford in 2 seconds. We can make it happen.
Blood?
I'm going to go on kind of a weird tangent to this and say all of the old PC games, give them to good old games. Let them put them up so we can actually play them on our current PCs.
I'm done with that.
Like I would love to try Grim Fandango. I never got to play that, but it's a pain in the butt to get running on a modern machine if you even find a disc. It's and a lot of those games are the same way. All of those old adventure games. You have to run through Scum Engine and I think even a lot of the old Star Wars games are in the same ballpark.
That, or at least give all those games back to Tim. Like if Tim Schafer worked on it, like give him his properties back.
Right.
That
that'd
would be
nice.
brilliant to let Double Fine go.
Just handle, the stuff at least that they did. I think a lot of people it's like Sophie's choice between my LucasArts games. The game I've been begging for, and the game that it just seems like it would make a ridiculous amount of money, is X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, HD, Xbox Live, whatever, right? Like multiplayer. Like just bring it back. It's not hard. Just HDify it, make it work. I don't know who would do it. I don't know, but it just seems like such a easy moneymaker.
You don't need to get expanded universe involved. You don't need a story.
I don't even need a story. I want to
give me a Corellian ship, give me an X-Wing, give me a TIE Fighter.
And laugh, and that's all I want to do. I want to get in the X-Wing and fly around. And it's like it's either that or KOTOR. KOTOR 1 is probably my favorite, newer LucasArts game, not out of the non-adventure game stuff. And I wish, the second game didn't do that well, and now it's this MMO that I played for a while, but I just don't have the time for it.
Who would you give it to?
Let's
face it, the BioWare of Knights of the Old Republic doesn't exist anymore. Let's just say that they are part of the evil empire. They're that based on Dantooine.
Although my brain definitely made the journey where I was like, who made Dragon Age? That game was pretty good. Oh, right.
Yeah.
No, I'd say give it. I don't know if you saw the interview with Dr. Greg this week about
Enough rope to hang yourself.
Yeah. It's not. They weren't hanging him.
No.
I don't know.
The only caveat I have is it can't be an EA company, so you've got to give it to somebody else.
God damn you.
If you all right, I'm going to go there.
Activision.
Jeremy Hoffman, ladies and gentlemen, he's got to go back and count his TV producer money. I would actually like to see, and this is way out of left field, but KOTOR. I've said this for a few times that I would love to have seen Jedi Knight, Dark Forces, X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, and Knights of the Old Republic to come together as this huge RPG environment. That you had all these different things from, and that's what the Old Republic should have been to me. I would take all that stuff and give it to either, and these are two out of left field, Bethesda.
Right. Yep.
Because I think they, Skyrim, Fallout, they've proven they can do this sort of stuff, or CD Projekt. After The Witcher and the Cyberpunk stuff, I think I'm sure you get people in there who are fans and love that. Because we all love that, that content, and to see their skill sets with the characters and how the characters work, and how you can interact and all the different things you could do. That to me would be the ultimate Star Wars game, and I'd pay $20 a month for it.
It'd be interesting if there was more than one game. Obviously Disney's wiping the slate clean. Is that what we could say they're pretty much doing now? With just axing everybody and starting with rumors the expanded universe isn't even going to survive this. So it'd be interesting if they did kind of like an Infinity thing, not on a graphics level, not a game built for 8-year-olds, but every game that they released, if it was a Battlefront kind of a game, if it was a more of an RPG, kind of like KOTOR kind of thing, then maybe all of these tied in together. So if you were getting experience in one game, you could carry that character over into another game that was released. So you could kind of invest interactively into this new Star Wars universe that they're trying to create.
I think we're going to get, unfortunately, Star Wars Spyro and Jar Jar Binks pod racing, and it's going to be...
I already own that game on the PS2.
Yeah, well, nobody's perfect. But unfortunately, that's the way I feel we're going to go with Star Wars.
Well, I mean, we don't know what's going on right now with the Lucas Disney stuff. Disney, obviously, with 1313 going away, that's most likely because there was the Boba Fett movie that they're talking about doing. 1313 was probably a Boba Fett game.
We'll see.
It's, we don't know. Like, Disney has done a good job with consumer products, at least of their stuff, right? And they've done a good job with Pixar. I think they've handled the Muppets well over the past couple of years. I think they understand their fan base. I think they're probably making hard decisions right now.
All right,
and
so
I think they're looking at it. I want to give Disney the benefit of the doubt.
Let's see how the mouse handles it.
Right.
And I hate to cut you off because we could talk about this all day. But we have come to the end of the show. This was 250. We were going to give away some stuff this week, but I feel that Ryan being back next week from his deathbed, he needs to handle that because I want him to come up with some creative way to give stuff away. Sorry we didn't do anything actually major insane for 250. Maybe we'll save something for 300.
I'm sure people are grateful.
Yes, they're probably. After episode 1, go watch episode 100. Seriously. That's the show for this week. We'll be back next week. Ryan will be back here. I'll be back there. All will be well with the world. We're out.
59 days till E3.
Jesus.
See this and other GT shows and game reviews on the GT Originals iOS app, available now on the App Store.